Hello and welcome to this episode of the P&E podcast. My name's Jack Jacob and I am your host. In this episode, I'm joined by Paul Bytheway, who's the Chief Operating Officer at the University Hospitals of North Midlands. Paul talks about a very happy childhood growing up in Wolverhampton and really having a passion for being involved in clinical settings that started at a young age when he volunteered for St John Ambulance, something he'd done all through his career. Paul talks about moving to London to find the person he wanted to become after coming out as gay at the age of 21, and how he feels that the big city was both exciting and overwhelming for him at that time. Paul's very passionate about working for the NHS, discussing that it gives him a sense of family, belonging, and really important that it makes a difference to him and other people's lives. Paul emphasises engagement, involvement, resilience, and being visible as a leader, qualities he also uses to advocate for the LGBT community, particularly within the NHS. Please do enjoy this episode as we get to know the person behind the job title. Hey everybody, before we get into today's conversation with Paul, just want to give a shout out to this episode's sponsors, Mprove and Just R. Mprove are the UK's first system flow consultancy. They're a disruptive and innovative consultancy business who are focused on helping the NHS and local authorities to improve the flow of people, information and resources across health and care systems. Last year, Mprove's co-founders Liam and Sam were heavily involved with the mobilisation of the UK's first fully integrated care trust, which integrates primary care with community, physical and mental health services. This first-of-its-kind organisation will have responsibility for the health and well-being of the whole population of their local health economy, working to an outcomes-based contract to deliver its revolutionary services. As many of our listeners today will know too well, the healthcare transformation and technology markets are diverse and complex. Knowing what works, how it's best to deliver your requirements, but also how it offers best value for money is challenging. When you add up the mix, there's a need to optimise complex inter-agency care pathways requiring specialist and expert modelling, planning, redesign and change management. The Mprove belief is that this is only possible if all parts of the healthcare industry work together. For more information, please visit www.m-prove.io. That's www.m-prove.io. Just R help NHS organisations to recruit nurses and other clinical staff using the latest digital marketing strategies and social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. To be very clear, Just R are not a recruitment agency, but an NHS specialist digital marketing agency that primarily focus on marketing trust recruitment needs to fulfil recruitment teams' pipelines with both experienced and graduate candidates through targeted online campaigns. Alongside this, they've recently built from scratch a next generation candidate pipeline management system which allows trust to track both the marketing campaign engagement but also the status of candidates within the recruitment process. Just R recently completed a 12-month project with Norfolk and Norwich University Hospitals where they delivered 108 nursing appointments through targeted digital marketing campaigns with an average cost of each hire of only around £350. They work now with over 30 trusts across the UK. So if you do have permanent recruitment challenges, particularly around nursing and clinical staff, please visit just-r.com/P&E. That's just-r.com/P&E to arrange some time to speak with Rachel and her team about how they can help you achieve a 21st century approach to recruiting your clinical workforce. Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining me and being part of this podcast series I'm doing. So great to be talking to you. And I think one thing that's kind of good for me as well is that, you know, you and I don't know each other too well. We've only been talking last kind of couple of weeks as we've been building up to do this. So it's be nice for me to get to know you a bit more and find out a little bit more about your journey and who you are.
Yeah, and really looking forward to it, Jack.
Good. So look, let's start with kind of where you grew up and kind of how you did in school and so on. So where are you from? Where was you based as a child?
So I'm from Wolverhampton. Still live in Wolverhampton, about 6 doors away from my mum. I'm not sure that's a good thing or a bad thing in many respects. Although I've travelled round the country with my job, I've always had a home here in Wolverhampton.
So with that, have you always maintained like a house that you have for, say, the weekend, and you've travelled back and from, or have you? Is it just because you're now working in the Midlands that you've now got a home back in West?
Where when I worked in Portsmouth, home was always Wolverhampton. We've got a house in Wolverhampton, and we I mean, I've blah, 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 blah.
Great start, mate.
Yeah.
So, have you always lived in Wolverhampton, or when you moved away, when you worked down south and stuff, and is it just now that you've now bought a home because you're back in the Midlands?
No, we've always had a house in Wolverhampton. This has always been our base, no matter where we've worked.
Right. So, with that, what happens then? Do you travel when you work away? Do you travel, say, Monday to Thursday, where you're based? Live on site or live on campus? I think. So now I'm in Stoke. It's only 40 minutes away from home. So it's a I go on a morning, come back on an evening. When I worked in Portsmouth, it was a Monday to Friday down in Portsmouth. Or we had an apartment in Portsmouth actually, overlooking the sea. So we would alternate weekends between home and being down in Portsmouth by the sea. Yeah, it's lovely having a holiday home. One thing it's made me want is a holiday home going forward. Yeah, there we go.
With a week.
So you grew up in Wolverhampton. So what was school like for you then? How did you do in school?
So actually, all my memories of being a child are all really, really positive. Great family life, great school life, librarian, prefect, all of those in charge things that were there from a very early on. Academically, struggled. I wasn't the brightest. I had to work really hard at what I wanted to do. I always, I wanted to be successful, wanted a good job, and to do that, I had to put the hours in. Very supportive parents, normal parents. Mum was a cleaner, Dad was an engineer. Dad spent a lot of time doing homework with me, supporting me. So all my childhood stuff, I really remember in a really, really great way. And friends now that, some of my friends I've known for, 40 years, we've been through school and we've grown up together. So they're really good.
Awesome. So what did you want to do growing up then? Did you always want to work for the NHS? Because as far as I can work out, you've literally always worked for the NHS, haven't you? And done some work with St John Ambulance.
Yeah. So up until I was about 14, I wanted to be a solicitor. That was kind of always where I was going. As you said, I've worked for St John Ambulance as a volunteer for 37 years. Joined when I was 10. So you can do that and work out that I'm 47 now. And then by the time I got to 14, I just got a different aspect on life and enjoyed being on first aid events, enjoyed mixing with people, and then just made the decision that I wanted to be a nurse. And that was my first calling. I wanted to be the Charlie Fairhead of the real NHS, which sounds really, really, really corny.
Is he the guy at Casualty?
Yeah, he's the guy at Casualty. Yeah.
The white-haired guy.
Yeah, he's white.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but when I was 14 or 15, that's absolutely where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in ED, and I wanted to be the senior nurse in ED. So therefore, that set me on a completely different career path, really. Yeah.
So you went to university and done a degree in nursing, is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. What year was that then?
1992.
1992.
So 95.
92 to 95. That was the degree was from 92 to 95, yeah?
September 92 at the University of Wolverhampton.
Right. There we go. Was it back then, in the 90s, for the stereotypes and perhaps things that shouldn't be stereotyped, it was probably back then I can imagine it was nurses were women and doctors were men, right? How was that for you enrolling in a nursing degree?
So, it never felt strange, or it never felt, like it wasn't the right thing for me to do. In my cohort, there was about 150 people, student nurses, all of us together, of which about 20 of them were male. So it was actually quite a big cohort of men in nursing. But I still think the stereotype, if you look at nurses in emojis or whatever, they're always female. There are very few pictures of male nurses, although it's becoming more prominent, and there's a big movement called Men in Nursing at the moment to try and change that sort of gender stereotype of what nurses are going to be like. But it was always the right thing for me to do, and it's a fantastic profession. I'm still registered now. It's a great profession to belong to, and during COVID, we've seen some fantastic ways of working from nurses, doctors, AHPs, everybody.
Yeah, of course. No. So did you have to at any point, because I spoke to a couple of senior leaders within the NHS that are registered nurse still, and they had to do a bit of retraining just in case with the COVID stuff that they would had to have been kind of deployed on wards. Did you have to do any of that?
No. So my chief exec was really clear that that my role had to be running the incident, and we couldn't mix it with a clinic. You need to go over there. So I was fit tested for all of the masks and things like that, as were the chief exec, as were the chief nurse, the medical director. So but my role was always going to be incident commander rather than mixing the two, because someone has to hold the ring on these things all the time. And actually, you probably wouldn't want me looking after you now after all these years of not being safe face to face.
Makes sense. What's it about the NHS that's kind of kept you so loyal for so long?
Sense of family, sense of belonging, sense of doing something for the greater good, being involved in people's lives, whether that's staff or patients. Yeah. To the great stories, or actually listening to the bad stories, but knowing how you can change them, working with patient staff to change services. There's no greater sense of accomplishment, I think, than working in an organisation that is dedicated to helping people, and people in that organisation all want to do the best for the people that they are looking after, and that brings a great sense of spirit with it.
Nicely put. Really, really nicely put. So talk to me about then, because I know that you like to travel. Because I've looking at your LinkedIn, you've worked Dudley, you've worked Portsmouth, back in the Midlands. So so obviously you when did you move away then first time from the Midlands then?
Okay, so I graduated in '95.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting year for me for two reasons, really. One, I moved away from home for the first time. I moved to London.
And how old were you at this point? How old were you?
21.
21.
I was 21 in the British capital, the bright lights of the city, and also I'd just come out as a gay man, and hence moving to London to find myself, really, by being the person I wanted to and needed to be, and so being a gay man in London, I thought would be easier than being a gay man in Wolverhampton. I don't think there was a difference. It's just the things you think of when you're coming out, which is a really important time for anybody who recognises themselves as LGBT plus.
Sure, makes sense. So talk to me about that coming out, because that's obviously a major moment in your life, right? How did you struggle with coming out? Was that a thing that took you a while, took up courage for you to do?
So I think it was, once I had come to terms with it myself, and I think that was probably the we're going back 20 odd years, aren't we? Society was different then. Will I be accepted? Won't I be accepted? Will my family kick me out? Those are all the things that go through your head. Once I decided to do it, I had a very positive experience of coming out from friends and family, and that's not universally recognised across the country. There are people who have terrible experiences, but for me, my family was supportive. My friends were supportive.
Did they know before? Did your family expect it?
I think if you asked my mum the question, she said she was expecting it when I was 16, but not when I was 21 because of the girlfriends I'd had by that time. Some people said, yeah, we knew. Some people said, really? It was a mix and match. But I think once I've made that decision, it was an easy. I don't hide things very well. It needs to come out. I've always been since I was 2 years of age. My mum said if I've got something to say, I'll say it. And actually, it was out and it was done within a matter of weeks. And then I was off to London.
Right.
I've been happily married now to my husband Aaron for 4 years. We've been together for 20 years. He puts up with a lot with me being a public servant. But our families have mixed together, our lives have mixed together, and actually, I say we've never had any challenges. But that's we're lucky. We're lucky in that respect.
Of course. Oh, amazing story. So you moved to London. So you just come out as gay. You moved to London. What was that like being in the capital, the bright lights, places like Soho? Because you've probably not experienced, that kind of community and that kind of hub where the community and the LGBT community kind of congregate.
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting. It was overwhelming. It was scary. It was lonely. All these feelings of excitement about being in the city, the big city with the big lights and the massive hospitals and the big clubs versus the how do I cook for myself? All of those things mixed into one. I was fortunate that I worked at University College in their cardiac unit, and I made some good friends down there who took me out and introduced me to London as a city and a home. And so it was within 6 months the fear, the loneliness had disappeared, and it was exciting to be experiencing. Getting on the tube every day, going past Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
The hustle, even now, so 20 years later, I get off the train at Euston in London and automatically I fall into, this is my home and I know where I'm going on the tube and all of those things.
How long did you stay in London for then?
7 years. I came back in.
Oh, wow. So quite a while.
Came back in 2002. So all of my clinical career, so A&E nurse, a clinical site manager. All of my clinical work was done down in London, and then when I moved home, I moved into a general management role, and by that time, that's the career path I'd chosen.
Yeah. So, you went into then. So did you become your Charlie then? So you become the A&E nurse, or
not the A&E senior nurse? No.
Right.
I got to be it was a G grade in those days, which was it's a senior assistant, senior charge nurse, and then I moved out of A&E nursing into clinical site management, duty management,
right,
in the hospital, and that being a duty manager gave me a whole breadth of experience across the whole organisation, every department, every specialty. You were the person to go to, and that's what pushed me down a general management career.
Right, makes sense. So going back then, because you it didn't take too long for you to get into a leadership role then. But before, you said that you'd been librarian, prefect. Did you always possess and show leadership qualities?
So I think if you ask my teachers, the answer would be yes. I was chair of school council for 2 years. I was vice chairman of the British youth council for 3 years. So I was sort of engaged with MPs and activism for the rights of young people. I was chair of the St John Youth Council for 5 years. So I think if you plotted my history all the way back, I was always in some form of leadership engagement role with people in the wider context.
Yeah. Did you feel that or do you now kind of doing a reflection and looking back, do you think actually, I probably did show quite strong leadership skills then? Because you don't fall into things like that by accident. You don't become the vice chair of the British Youth Council. You don't become the junior chair of the St John's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's interesting because I don't remember thinking 20 years ago that I'm a leader. You know, for me, I've been involved in these charities for a long time, and it was a part I wanted to play in supporting that charity. That's probably my youth, and that's probably my naivety. If you look back, you know, if you then look forward for 25 years, every job I've then gone for, once I got to like a junior charge nurse role, was always then about the next step and trying to climb the ladder. But I think when I was 19, 20, it was more about, being involved and doing something different. But they were all leadership roles. You know,
yeah.
They've all been the tapestry of what I've got, which has got me to where I am now in the NHS.
Makes sense. So what does leadership mean to you then? What's good leadership?
Engagement, involvement, being visible, being firm but fair. Trying to ensure that you have a rapport, particularly at board level, because I think it's really difficult at board level to build relationships, but to try and build a relationship with the greater community of the hospital. You know, whether you're a band 2, a band 8A, or whoever, that actually people recognise you for the role that you play and the supportive role that you play in an organisation. During COVID, for example, we've done Facebook Live sessions with our staff Facebook page. You know, got about 5,000 people on it, and it's every Friday, and we regularly get a couple of hundred people joining in, who are people who don't have access to executive directors normally, and they've been able to ask us questions directly about how they are feeling, you know, in an open, transparent way. And for me, leadership in the NHS is really, really about that, being able to connect with people across the whole organisation, no matter where you are, that people are able to ask you questions and you have a two-way conversation.
Yeah, because you're fairly active on social media, it is anyway, Twitter, LinkedIn, because obviously that's where kind of we first engaged was LinkedIn.
I'm actually relatively, in Twitter terms, I'm relatively new to Twitter, probably only about four and a half years. And you know, again, only once I became a chief operations officer did I want to engage with Twitter, because I wanted people to be able to contact me, engage with me, for me to give messages about the great work, you know, that our teams. I love retweeting what our teams are doing in the hospital. You know, no greater pleasure than talking to staff or seeing what our staff are doing for patients. Fantastic, love it.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you have many patient interactions on there? Because your handle's like UHNM COO, isn't it?
A few. And actually, I was going to say it's more about when people have not had such a positive experience, but actually it's 50-50. You know, I think you get the good and you get the bad, and that's, you know, that's great. You know, the good and the bad, we can solve the both. And I do think visible leadership means that's exactly what it is. You're visible to everybody. You're visible to the community in which you work, which allows people to contact you.
Yeah, makes sense. So, and you talk about it's hard to form relationships at board level. Why do you say that? Is it because it's quite political? Is it a case where and correct me if I'm wrong, but is it a case where you don't want to open up too much to people because you don't want people to have ammunition and be able to stab you in the back? Is it that sense, or?
I think you've misinterpreted it. It's difficult for the board. I mean, UH&M, all my jobs, we all get on really well. So that's it's not at board level. It's board level members being able to form relationships.
Sorry, get what you mean.
The band twos on the ward. How do we feel? We have a very visible chair. We have a very visible chief executive. I'm very visible. The chief. We're all out there a couple of times a week because we want people to tell us what it's really like. We can read a performance report. We can read any report, but actually, what's it like today for the band two in A&E, or what's it like for the junior biochemist in labs? Being out there and making people feel comfortable to tell you how it is about the visibility and about the relationships.
Yeah.
Not board members. Sorry,
makes sense. I'll shut up now.
You've ruined my whole career.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, exactly. Now, you talk about kind of low members. I've spoken to people and they're saying like some of the most important relationships that we have, especially for like information gathering and not that you'd use these people for information, but relationship with porters and cleaners and those kind of people as well. Really, really super, because they probably know what's going on the hospital on a day-to-day basis, and where there's harmony, where there's cohesion, et cetera, perhaps more than senior leaders because they don't see it as much.
Just before we went into lockdown, one of my back to the floor shifts, which, before lockdown, I used to do about 3 a month, where I'd go and spend time with the team. I spent in switchboard, sitting with the switchboard operators for 3 hours. And that was fascinating. Something I'd never done. And listening to the challenges, it gave a completely different perspective on teams and how teams worked. And I came away with a whole list of what the hospital looked like from a switchboard operator's perspective, which was fascinating. And things I discovered in those 3 hours that the teams were doing within their own teams to sort of, support themselves was having a direct impact on switchboard. Fascinating. And you're right, back in the days when I was a site manager, a duty manager, the porters, the switchboard were always the people you needed to keep on side because they were the people that were going to help you when you most needed it, because they knew everything that was going on, and I'm sure they still do at UH&M.
Yeah, makes sense. So talk to me about your personal life then. So you look to be an avid reader with your book, can't even speak, your big book. So you're a reader, obviously.
Yeah, reader. Everything really. There's all around here and all around the bedrooms up here. There are books everywhere, from fiction to leadership books, non-fiction, crime books, emotional intelligence. You name it. There's a whole host of books that just fascinate me. And I don't have a particular. What I usually do is put something on Twitter or Facebook that goes, "What's everybody reading at the minute?" to try and pick up a variety of books. So reading is one of my, of an evening, come home, glass of wine, switch off, and read a book, alongside, gym and walking and, and things like that.
Yeah, makes sense. So what's your favourite book? Or have you got a couple?
God.
What's your favourite fiction book? What's your favourite, say, biography, and what's your favorite self-improvement leadership type book? So 3 books.
There's a series of books called The Rosie Effects, which is a comedy and is about love, but in a strange kind of emotional way. So I really, there's about 4 of those. I really enjoyed those. The Tattoo of Auschwitz was a really, really deep book, and they've done.
I've seen the film. It's an incredible film.
And it just is. It's just really, it really just transports you to a different time. And they've just done a follow-up book actually, immediately after, which I've forgotten the name. But and again, that's as intense as the Tattoo of Auschwitz. And and it follows people through the journey from, the wartime Germany to then liberation, and those that were then incarcerated in the East, the Iron Curtain. I'm reading a book. It's not really reading a book at the minute. It's a book about meditation, and every day you get a different meditation to read and ponder on, and there's one for every day of the year. And I started doing Couch to 5K. And actually what I do is I read the daily meditation each morning. And then when I'm running, that's what I try and think about. And that tries to get you to focus on well-being and, changing things that you can change and not worry about those things. So huge rack of things that I read that I really enjoy.
Yeah. I love reading too. I just don't do enough of it. And it's like one of those things, when I go on holiday, I'll really read on holiday, and I'll get really into it, and I'll order a load of books when I come back, and it dwindles and dwindles. And actually, I haven't thought about this for ages actually, but at the start of the year, so when we started in January, I thought there was some changes I wanted to make in the business, and I wanted to, start to really improve the team. So I scheduled in we had a set time. I think it was like between 10 and 10:30 every day as a company. We read for half an hour every single day. And we'd done that, for 2.5 months before, about 3 months before, things went into lockdown. And I tell you what, we need to pick it back up. It's our first day back in the office actually. So, hence me being in the office. But yeah, it was really, really good.
I mean, I love those books that are just slightly, well-being, make you think about what you do every single day. And I bought one. We went to the Tate Modern just before lockdown, and it's called the School of Life, and that's an alternative look at what we do every single day, but from a meditation and well-being point of view. It's really interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah. So I've started running in lockdown, and done a few 5Ks. I've done one 10K as well. But I actually listen to podcasts or audiobooks while I'm doing it. I tried to listen to music while I was running, but I couldn't. It was basically too many. I'm too technically ungifted to create a playlist on Spotify, basically. So I'd stick on a pre-made one, and it was just annoying me that songs were coming on that I didn't like. So I don't know if you've listened to any audiobooks or podcasts whilst you've been running.
I could think of nothing worse, to be honest.
Really?
Just because I'm concentrating to get to the end of the run.
That's it takes your mind off it.
The podcast that I do listen to is The Diary of a CEO.
Yeah, Stephen Bartlett, love it.
He, his journey of leadership is unreal.
What's been your favourite episode of his?
So I like the one that he's just done about lockdown and looking after yourself, and how people can attack things in different ways, but keeping the positive mindset, and how he does it through. So he's a journaler. I've written a journal for probably about 18 months, 2 years now, and how using the journal to channel negative energy out to keep the positive thoughts in your head. In fact, I've listened to it about 3 times, because every time you listen to it about, where his business partner was, I think brings a different reflection to dealing with, those inner demons that we all have. We've all got inner demons about, leadership, and particularly during COVID, will I make a mistake? What will happen? Channeling that positive energy, he appears to be very, very good at. So I've kept a journal for a good couple of years now.
Talk to me about that. Have you, just before you talk about that, because I want to ask you about that and why you think it's important. Have you listened to the Joe Wicks podcast with him?
Yeah.
The body coach one, yeah?
And again, Joe Wicks' story, from nothing to standing outside a tube station, dishing out flyers, to the huge hits he has on YouTube, and again, real effort, real charisma, real determination, and anybody can be successful. I come from a normal family. Mom's a cleaner, dad's a factory worker. But if everybody works, if you're focused on where you want to go and you plan, and I think that's the important thing about leadership. You plan where you want to go and how you can get there. The sky's the limit, really.
Yeah, no, definitely, completely agree. And I think too many people are drifting, and so like I have clear goals. Like, I know what I wanted to achieve, and I probably need to make mine less business focused. I'm probably a bit too, me being brutal honest, I need to work on becoming a better dad and creating more time for my family and being there for my kids more and being more patient and that kind of stuff. And that's kind of where I need to get to, and where I need to set some goals around. And probably me thinking about this and talking about this now is probably the first time I've really talked about it or thought about it.
I think resilience is something that. How old are you?
26.
None of us think about resilience at 26. And I personally think what I know now, if I'd have been taught when I was a we go back to my clinical career and I was a G grade, and then when I became a directorate manager, the importance of well-being and home life versus work life, they were out the window. I didn't care if I worked 13 hours a day every day at that time, because actually I was able to.
What does resilience mean? Talk to me about what actually resilience means.
So for me, reading is part of my resilience. Gym is part of my resilience. Knowing that on a Thursday night, I always finish work at 4:00 on a Thursday, because I come home and I cook tea. That's my job on a Thursday. And being able to make sure you can turn off your work head to give you some downtime. And understand the reason I started writing a journal was because everything was merging into one, and actually, I went to see a counsellor because it was becoming too much, and taking that first step of going, do you know what? I'm struggling at the moment. I need to go and offload my feelings to be able to put them back in a more organised way. Was the biggest step. Once I'd made that step, I saw a wonderful lady for about 4 months, who all she ever did was replay my own thoughts back to me in a different way. And I wish I'd learned what she taught me 10 years ago in terms of being able to stay positive, use journaling, Headspace as an app to keep focus, because it's okay not to be okay, but it's okay not to deal with not being okay, because it will just become a problem for everybody.
It's not okay to not deal with it.
We've just started at UHM an engagement process with our directorate managers, and the first thing I've done for them is arranged resilience sessions, because they need to learn it now, not learn it when there's a problem. Learn it now and learn how to deal with it, and learn to recognise what triggers you. Because once you know what triggers you, you can then de-escalate it much quicker.
If you could share anything with me, that'd be amazing. I'd be keen to see anything. Yeah, that's because for me, resilience is more about being resilient and being, tenacious and being resilient in a sales perspective, basically, and not giving in and not saying. Not letting that no damage you. That's what I meant. That's for me. That's what resilience means for me, and probably many salespeople.
And actually, but it's that I think we're saying, actually somebody saying no is not a knock. It's a learning experience. Someone said no because I haven't thought something through, or it doesn't fit, or I need to try something, or I need to try something different. And being able to understand that, from every knock you learn, rather than turn it in and make it about you, because it isn't about you. It's about, going forward. And I think if you'd have asked me, definitely when I was 26, probably even when I was 36, how are you resilient? Well, the answer would have been, I've got a good set of friends, and actually I go down the pub and we thrash it out there, but that only half offloads some of the problems. Being able to take control yourself is really important.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's move on. Talk to me about the proudest moment in your career, or your life, in fact.
Gosh. So I guess the proudest moment, I think, would have been when I got my first charge nurse job, and you wear the dark blue of the sister, So I think becoming a charge nurse in A&E was probably the proudest moment. I've had a couple of wow experiences. So I've been to 2 garden parties at Buckingham Palace, which were just unreal. One in 97. Both have been with St John Ambulance,
right.
but one in 97 for the VE Day parades, and then about 2005. 6 as part of the work we've done within the West Midlands for St John. That was just an unbelievable experience. And we when I was at Dudley, we got a HSJ award for the most improved A&E performance. So taking the whole team to London and winning that award was just a real collective show of strength from the whole team. The whole team had delivered. So, some really great memories of both St John and working in the NHS.
Why St John? Why did you do it?
Why do I do it now, or why did I do it originally?
Oh, why did you? Why? You've done it for years. So what? You're not. You seem to always be drawn to things that give. And the services that give.
So and
it's voluntary as well. You don't get paid for it either, do you?
I mean, I joined when I was 10, so I'm not sure I can remember that far back.
It was quite a long time ago, to be fair, mate.
Yeah, it was a long time ago now. But what kept me in it, I think, is again the experiences, the representing St John. At a national level with the youth council, to standing in any event, the Molyneux in Wolverhampton or the London Marathon, and volunteering my time to make sure somebody is okay and that they are looked after should they need to be. And St John is very much like the NHS. There's a family of St John. There's people I've grown my whole St John career. I've known and grown up with that. We're good friends, now as we were 20 years ago. That sense of belonging to something, and that sense of doing something in the community in which I live and which I work. It's a great organisation, and we've seen it during COVID, haven't we? Our volunteers in St John have stepped forward and have gone and worked in our emergency departments. They've gone and driven GPs around so that GPs can go and see people who are sick, the blood transfusion services, driving ambulances, that sense of taking a step forward as part of community spirit. Again, same as being in the NHS, really. Same ethos, same sense of pride in what you do.
Makes sense. Talk to me about some of the most challenging times of your career then, or in your life.
I guess so. I mean, the one that's just obvious at the minute is going into COVID. I think if you asked any coup or chief nurse or medical director, what were those first few weeks like? The fear was just unreal.
What, the fear for the organisation being overwhelmed?
Yeah. You think, it's difficult to think back to March. If you think back to March, we've got the television telling us what was happening in Wuhan, Italy, Spain, the pictures that were being visually forced down our throats every single day, and the fear that actually we were going to get ourselves into that situation, I think probably gave us all really, really sleepless nights. But at the same time, when we got to work the next day, pushed us to make sure that all of our teams were engaged, that we weren't going to get to that point. So I think that's, you know, by the time you're a key medical director, chief nurse, whatever, you've seen a lot of things which help you become good incident directors or managers of situations. Nobody knew what this prolonged attack on our NHS could have looked like and what that could have manifested itself as. But, you know, in a major incident, you know, 2 or 3 days, you're in, you're out, but this was going to be a prolonged attack on the NHS, which I think was, for all of us, gave us sleepless nights at the time. And now we're having sleepless nights about getting all the services back up and running. You know, making sure they're done and delivered in a safe way for patients and staff. And staff who've worked so hard during the incident are now tired, and want something different.
So, there's going to be an issue with staff wellbeing, surely. You know, people are going to feel really, really burnt out. And do you think you as an organisation or the NHS as a whole has a duty of care now to make sure that there is some well-being kind of practices put in place to make sure people are okay mentally and can have the breaks that they deserve and need?
100%. Yeah. In fact, at UH&M, our staff briefing today is absolutely focused on all things well-being. You know, asking individuals, ward managers, team managers, what do they need, but also the more formal offering of counselling and debriefing. You know, a whole host of things, and I think, you know, I think the NHS teams are shattered. You know, that they've run at this for 4 months now, and as the adrenaline starts to wear off and the incident starts to wear off, actually people are reflecting, and I think now is probably the time where those debriefing sessions, those counselling sessions, those ability to process what you've seen, what you've heard, what you've been through, are where we're going to start having challenges with our staff. And, you know, I'm sure every hospital is, you know, we're gearing ourselves up to be able to deal with all of those challenges at a time at which we're then having to gear back up our services, theatres, imaging, endoscopy, all of those services that now need to come back online. We're now trying to get them back offline because the side of the waiting list. It's a very unhappy equilibrium around giving people, our staff, the chance to reflect and you know, inwardly manage what they're feeling with, without pushing them too hard to get the services back up and running. To find balance at the moment, and I think we've got a thank you week next week. Every day is based on us thanking our teams. You know, everybody saying thank you to everybody, and showing the great work that we've done, trying to bring the COVID incident to an end, but then be able to demonstrate how we're all going to move forward together. So staff are clear and engaged about where they are, and it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
Mm. On that thank you agenda, then what's your thoughts on the Thursday night clap, the thank you to the NHS workers and other key workers?
I think at the time it was one of those things that brought the whole community together as one. Where we live, you know, all of our neighbours came out to clap. All of our neighbours, we are all now on a WhatsApp group because we were looking after each other. You know, that sense of community that brought, I think, is one of those things that I really hope we keep it going forward. That sense of we're all in it together. You know, we're all friends, we're all neighbours, we all look after each other. You know, walking down the street, you know, when you could go out for your hour walk a day, everybody spoke to each other. Everybody, no matter where you were, morning, how are you? You know, all of those pleasantries. where actually probably 6 months before you'd have just walked past people and wouldn't even have noticed. So, that clap was a symbol of community, not key work. Of course, it was key work, is keeping people going, but its bigger impression was communities coming together for each other. And that's what I think we need to try and maximise on as we go forward.
Yeah. There was a couple of goosebump moments for me with it. I think the first week I don't think many people knew about it, but the second week it was really quite, the whole street, fireworks, but you could hear it. So we've got like our road adjoins to a longer road, like quite a long road. And you could really hear the other, because it's such a long road, and you just, it was incredible, really, 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 really incredible.
It was a real show of community, Dunkirk spirit, whatever mindset you get to. What it was everybody coming out to celebrate people, communities, and keeping going, because that's what needed to happen at the time. And clearly it's the NHS's birthday on Sunday this week, and actually coming out and celebrating again as a show of solidarity and community is a fitting gesture for I think she's 74, isn't she? For the grand old beast that is.
Yeah. 72, isn't it? Yeah. So Sunday there's another thing, is there? I didn't know about it.
So Sunday there's another thing again on social media around coming out at 8 o'clock for the NHS's 72nd birthday.
I'll be on my second bottle of wine by 8 o'clock on Sunday.
Yeah, and the rest.
Awesome. So I just want to cover your coup role, because first of all, how do you describe your role? How would you describe what you do?
I
thought that question might take a while to get an answer out of.
So I guess when things go bad, it's the coup's fault. When things go good, the chief nurse and the medical director did well. That's kind of how I think it sums up.
Down bitter. Oh,
a coup. But for me, my job is about keeping everybody working together, beating together. I sit in a triumvirate with the chief nurse and the medical director. We are linked together. We don't make decisions away from each other, because we are the people who are running and supporting the hospital on a day-by-day basis. My eyes look down through outpatients, theatres, wards. The queue has a vast overview of pretty much 2/3 of the hospital. It's a really privileged place to be in, because you get to see everything that goes on each day, and you have to be a certain mad person, I think, to want to be a Q. I think out of all the vacancies at board level, Q is one of the ones that is hardest to fill, because you have to have a real sense of you want to be the Q, because you want to see the good, you want to see the great, you want people to be pulling together, and you want to be the person who's helping to support teams to do that.
Yeah, because David Lawton, I assume your local NHS chief executive, so he was the closing keynote at one of our events once, and he basically said that as a chief executive, I'm not running the hospital. I'm looking at how the hospital, I'm basically looking at things 6 months and onwards. I shouldn't be working on anything that affects the hospital now or for the next 6 months. My role is 6 months onward improvement type work, transformational type work. So it's really the coup, the medical director, and the chief nurse that run it. Then you're saying.
And I think what's interesting is when I went to see David as part of my interview for my first coup, and he told me that. So he told me that very line, and I think I've probably used it in each of my 3 coup interviews ever since. It's my job to keep it going day to day. It's your job, Chief, to keep eyes on the 6 months, because actually that's what you need the Chief to be doing. Someone's eyes need to be on the future, and our eyes need to be on the here and now and keeping it going.
Do you know that I have a notoriously high last minute dropout rate for coups when they come to my events. You people sign up to my event, and then on the day I get an email like, "So sorry, Jack, it's gone mental. I can't come."
That's the life of a coup. Can't control us, can't tie us down. Always somewhere where we shouldn't be at the time when we should be somewhere else. Curse of the coup.
The curse of the coup, is it? Is that what it is? Cool. Well, look, I really enjoyed this conversation, Paul, and thank you so much for being on the show. Being on the show. So we just suddenly got bigger.
We're a game host now.
Yeah, we're a game host. Yeah. Thanks for being on the podcast. Really inspirational, and some really good points, and certainly some things for me to think about that you said. So thank you for that.
Cheers, Jack. Good to see you.
You too. So I hope everyone's enjoyed to get to know the person behind the job title. Hi everybody, thanks so much for listening to that episode of the P&E podcast. If you like what you heard, please make sure that you share this episode via your social media channels, as it really does help us to gain traction in promoting this podcast series. Please make sure that you also subscribe to the channel that you're listening via, as you'll then get notifications as soon as we release our next podcast episode. Thank you.